So today's agenda, first we understand what is sanitations. We have already a little bit explained earlier. And the second, we will understand how to select the right option for excreta disposal. Be familiar with different technical options for excreta disposal in emergency. Understand issues to be considered about usage of toilets. And the final one, be able to construct a latrine, or at least know what to be considered when designing or building one. If you are selected by the committee to come for our face-to-face training in the technical practical session, you will learn also in our PMI training facilities in Bandung to construct latrine from scratch. So at least from now on, you can prepare how to construct the latrine from the beginning. Okay, so the first one, what's dangerous about faeces? So if you already joined from our first presentation, our first webinar, you have already seen or familiar with this drawing of the F diagram. So this, in previous weeks, we already learned that diarrhea is one of the main causes of morbidity and mortality in emergency situations. The microorganisms that cause diarrhea usually spread by the fecal-oral route, either directly or indirectly. So one of the main causes of the spread of this diarrhea, or this main the communicable disease in emergency situation, is the environmental hygiene, especially the bad sanitation conditions. So in order to block the transmission route, it's necessary to focus on the primary sanitary barriers. And we will learn one of them is the sanitation part for today's presentations. So this primary sanitary barriers, as you can read in the slide, the first one is about the latrine or toilets. The second one is the hand washing, especially hand washing with soap in the critical times, water treatment and water handling, and then the good hygiene behavior, as well as food hygiene. This is, again, the same presentation that a few weeks ago you have seen. The hand washing is one of the the main barrier that can reduce diarrhea risk very significantly. And the second one is the water quality in the household level, in the point of use level. A few weeks ago, you have learned also about the household water treatment. So this is the water quality in household level as the second place. The third place is on sanitations, and usually water quality source and water supply quantity and quality. During the emergency response, this is the first one that appear. Okay, we want to do intervention in water first. Water is important, but sanitations and hygienes are also very important. So usually water comes first, and then sanitation and hygiene promotion just left behind. So please, from now on, water, sanitation, and hygiene is equally important. So please be aware that everything is important in wash intervention. So how do we do the excreta disposal in emergency? So as you can see, we will focus now in this part. In the diagram, you can see there are main steps that we need to do when we have to address sanitation in emergency situations. Of course, the first one, when the disaster happens, what we do is conducting the rapid assessment. This rapid assessment, of course, we will conduct with the community consultations and coordination with the stakeholders. Also with close coordination and cooperation with the hygiene promotion team or with the community outreach team. It depends on what you call. From this coordination, we can receive input from the community, from this hygiene promotion team that come to the community and have dialogue with the community. We can get input, and it led us to make a planning design for our intervention. And after that, in the implementation phase, the first phase is immediate action, which means the most urgent intervention that can we do in sanitation part. So we do immediately without waiting longer, because the longer we wait to do the action, the higher the risk the contamination will occur, and then the communicable disease will occur as well. And then after that, we will conduct more in-depth assessment and conduct the in-depth planning design, and then we conduct the second phase in medium-term action, which is improvement of the immediate action that we did earlier. And during the implementation, we conduct the regular monitoring and evaluation for improvement of our interventions. When we talk about the wash intervention in emergency, one of our reference is the sphere standard. The new sphere standard 2018 is already published, and you can access it online. We have soft copy in several languages. So basically, in Excreta disposal emergency, we have the first standard, which is environment is free from human feces. So in the indicator, the design, we have to take the consideration of the sphere minimum standards. This indicator that it mentioned in both the qualitative and quantitative indicators. For the standard, you can see from the simple diagram on the slide that for the latrine or for the excreta disposal, we have to consider some of the measurement that mentioned in the sphere. The first one is the distance from the shelter or from the dwellings is maximum 50 meters. The distance between the latrine and the water source, this water source, both groundwater source or surface water source, minimum 30 meters. And distance from the dwelling to the water source is a maximum of 500 meters. And the distance between the bottom of the pit, we will learn later on in the next slide, between the bottom of the pit in the latrine or the toilet with the surface of the groundwater is 1.5 meters minimum. So in a high groundwater table area, so we need to find like specific solutions, specific technical solution to address the issues. We will talk in the next slide as well. So, as I mentioned, the first one, the environmental free from human feces, and also the children feces disposed immediately and hygienically. So we will discuss in the next slides. The second standard is appropriate and adequate toilet facilities. In emergency situations, in the early stage, we can set a target that one toilet can be used for 50 users, but immediately we have to improve it for one toilet for 20 users. So this is the points that we need to consider when we will conduct the sanitation intervention during emergency situations. How much the target, how many the target population that we need to address, and also our resources to provide the latrine according to the standards. There are several technical options. Later on we will discuss this into detail. But this is for your first thought, that first on the first phase, it is like on the second or third day after disaster, especially if there is a huge people get displaced or huge people needs immediate facilities. The first option is defecation fields. Yes, this is the option that very large population need to be addressed. You don't have any capacity to construct proper latrine. So the first option that should be only for 2 or 3 days is defecation field, which is just like open defecation but in a certain area. We will discuss it later. But this is only if you don't have any capacity, you don't have any resources, and immediate action is needed. But if you have resources and you have the capacity, you can immediately, or you just straight away start into the second option or the third options. The second option is what we call it the trench latrines. Yeah, from the first phase, these trench latrines can be used up to 2 months after the disasters before we can improve. But of course, if within 1 week you can improve to be more proper latrine, you have to improve immediately. The third option is called a simple pit latrine. Yes, usually medium to long-term solutions is simple pit latrines. And then also it can be improved as the VIP latrines or ventilated improved pit latrine. So the VIP is not for important person, but this is ventilated improved pit latrine, which is the improvement of the simple pit latrines. And for contact space, especially like the high water table area or the soil that's very difficult to dig, rocky area or like in the frozen area, there are like there is a ecosan or ecological sanitation latrine options. And also the last one for medium to long-term pace, medium to long-term solution is a septic tank latrine. So, wait, oops. This is the latrine components. Actually, latrine components only have 3 parts. So, the first one is the pit. Pit is the most important one. It is the will contains the faeces, will contain the excreta, and will and it is a key component that it should be safe for environment. So in several cases, this pit can be, for example, it can be a septic tank, if it directly septic tank, or other excreta container. But for a simple pit latrine, for example, this pit will be the main key factor how we make our latrine or toilet safe for environment and for a community, affected community. The second part is the floor, or we call it as the slab. The slab must be strong enough to withstand the weight of the users, and also have to be easy to clean, so to maintain the latrine hygiene. And the last part is the superstructures. Again, the superstructure has to be secure to maintain dignity and security, also to protect the user from the elements, from the natural elements, from the sun, from the rain, from the winds, and so on. So we will discuss more detail, and first we will discuss about the pit itself. So when we discuss about the pit, usually when we construct about the pit latrine, the dimension of the pit latrine is around 1 meter across and 3 meters deep. Later on we will discuss and we will learn how to calculate the pit size. It depends on the users, but usually this is the dimension of the pit. And the best shape, if you can choose the shape, the circular shape will be the best option because it is stronger and also it can contain the volume, more volume of the waste. And then the top of the pit should be always lined. That depends on the soil conditions, especially if the soil is loose, like sandy soil, and the soil that can very easily have erosion risk. So it has to be lined to reduce the risk of collapse. So the lining is vary, but usually the height of the lining is around 50 centimeters or 0.5 meters. So there are different options of pit lining depend on the existing local materials. You can use like this first drawing. You can use the oil drum. You can use the concrete ring, or you can use the woven bamboo, or you can use the brick, or maybe you can use the wood, or I have experience using the sandbag as the lining as well. So depend on the situation and the available local materials. Okay. The second one is the slab. As I mentioned before, the slab has to be strong enough to support to withstand the weight of a person. So, and then also easy to clean. The slab also has to be larger than the pit, so it can rest firmly on the foundations, and smooth surface. So actually, why it has to be smooth surface? So it can be easy to clean, to maintain the hygiene. So there are several options of this slab. So the first option of the slab, you can make the slab from the concrete, from the board of the wood, or also the ferro cement, which is also from the like the concrete type constructions, and also from plastic. There are some sanitation kits that comes with the plastic slab for the your latrine. And then the final part of the latrine or your toilet is the superstructures. The superstructure must be maintained the privacy and dignity, also safety. So it has a lockable door minimum, and also the good ventilations, good lighting, especially in the evening. And then the size of the superstructure minimum is 1 square meters or more. Yeah, so 1 square meter is a minimum. You can make superstructure from any available materials in your place. Usually you can use timber, bamboo, or plywood, or any available material in your place. And please be aware that this latrine constructions is very cultural sensitive. So the users' involvement in design, in placement, and also the type of latrine also has very important to be in close consultation of the users of the affected communities, because if not, it will be difficult later on in the operation and maintenance of these latrine facilities. Yes, back. This is the formula to calculate the pit size. So, for example, you want to conduct the sanitation interventions, and you need, okay, the question is how big the size of the pit to cover this amount of populations. So this is the formula that you can use to calculate the size of the pit. So the population is represented by the N, the number of users. Usually, again, one latrine as the spill standard minimum is for 20 users. So we can put 20 in this formula. And then the S is the sludge accumulation rate. This is a liter per person per year. Later I will show you the table that show the sludge accumulation rate. And then the D is the design life of this latrine. So how long this latrine will be used, its design will be used, which is 1 year, half year, or depend on the situations. So, and then we will also calculate the depth of the pit. And then we have to add 0.5 meters or 50 centimeters of free space to depth. This is an example of how we can calculate the pit size calculations. So, for example, the number of users, sorry, for that pit is 20 people, and then the sludge is about 90 liters per person per year, and then the lifespan of this latrine, we will design the design life of this latrine about 6 months, which is 0.5 years. Okay, so this is you can see the calculation there, and then 20 times 90 times 0.5, we divide it into 1,000. So 1,000 is when we try to convert the liters into the meter cubics. So the size of the pit is 0.90 cubic meters. And then we calculate the circular pit diameter. For example, this radius is 0.5 meter as a radius. So we can calculate the surface area of the pit. And you can see the calculations, which the result of the calculation is the pit size is the depth of the pit is 1.65 meters. Remember, the calculation is 1.115 meters, and you have to need to add another 0.5 meters. Okay. So this is the sludge accumulation rates table that in the formula that where
sorry,
use this table as the reference to calculate the sludge accumulation rate per liter per person per year. So depend on the situations and conditions. Like, for example, waste retained in water where degradable annual cleansing materials are used. So this is on the stable situation, non-emergency situation, and emergency situation. So this is the part where you can, okay, what is, how much is the sludge accumulation rate in emergency? You have to use on the table on the right in emergency situations. So it's vary in different conditions, around 40 liters per person per year, up to 135 liters per person per year. So this is the sludge accumulation rate. The technical design also, we can use these considerations, especially the organizational option considerations. There are several options. The first one is public facilities, which is designed, built, maintained, and cleaned by the outside of body, but it is not the user itself that operate and maintain the facilities. The second one is the family facilities, usually designed and built by the users in the family levels. It can be used by several families, but also can be used by the only one families. And the last one is the communal latrine. It is similar with the public facilities, but the difference of communal facilities is that the operation and management of these facilities, also the responsibility to clean, to fix, to maintain is the community itself. So the community have to share resources to maintain these facilities. And these facilities belong to the community. So this is the design considerations that when we designing the latrine, that we need to see the context of where this latrine will be constructed and for who this latrine will be constructed. The first one is the on setting, organizing, and implementation of these interventions. Refer to the sphere minimum standard on the safe distance, also in number of people and time, especially the design for the lifespan of the latrine. We have to avoid depressions, water courses that might run with water. Again, the risk of erosions, the collapse of the pit also will be there. So we have to consider these factors. And then we have to discuss with community and local traditions. Different community, they have different habits, they have different cultures. Not only about the structure itself, but also, for example, about the annual cleansing materials. One community, perhaps, they get used to using water as annual cleansing materials. The other community, they get used to using toilet papers and so on. So this is also have connection in how we design our interventions. And then space for additional latrines. Again, this is perhaps not a big deal if the emergency situation is in the rural area. But if the disaster occur in the urban area where the space is very limited, so again, special technical option needs to be considered as well. Land availability and types, again. Construction resources, what is the local material available, and what is the superstructure that can be constructed per input and recommendation from the community. Safety and accessibility, lighting, location, distance, screening. This is from the parks, for example. And then design, and then spirit facilities between male and female, and also the consideration for the elderly, children, disability, and other marginalized group, for example. So we need to put into consideration when we designing latrine. Hand washing facilities is very important, because when we discuss about latrine, we will discuss about the hygiene, and hygiene behavior. Not only we just ask the community to wash your hand, but we have also to prepare the hardware. So hand washing facility is a must to accompany the latrine facilities. The logistic, yes, the logistic, especially for the soap, annual cleansing materials, as well as the materials for latrine constructions. It is difficult to find nearby vendor in the certain area. Is the material need to be imported from abroad and so on. And then also the staff and volunteers to mobilize the community in constructing the latrine. Also the quality control. Not only the quality control that the latrine is in good quality and safe, but also ensuring that everybody can use. Yeah, everybody can use. So I understand in several areas, and culturally there are that in different level of community, they have like separate latrine, something like that. So we have to ensure that everyone have access to this latrine. So we will move to the next part, like the emergency wash in Asia Pacific. How we usually conduct intervention, sanitation intervention in emergency response, especially in Asia Pacific region. This is the first option that I've mentioned earlier in the previous slide. That when the disaster happened, let's say about most of the latrine, available latrine got damaged, and lots of people need immediate help, immediate intervention on sanitations, and you don't have much capacity. The first option is open defecation field or defecation field. Basically, it's an area that you can ask the community, if a community, yet you can defecate in that area only, and you cannot defecate anywhere else. Yeah, anywhere else, sorry. So basically, this is open defecation, but this is only for specific area. But remember, wherever possible, we have to avoid these options, and we can install the trench latrine or pit latrine whenever possible. So this is the option that you need immediate action, you need immediate intervention on sanitation, but you have very limited resources to do the intervention. The other immediate option is the biodegradable plastic bag. The name of the brand is called Pipu. You can see, you can click on the link later on after for more detail. So usually we use the Pipu bag. So P from P and Pu from Pu. So you call it Pipu bag. Or you can use the polyethylene or semi-degradable bags. So currently in the market there are available biodegradable bag, so you can use. And please avoid to use the non-biodegradable plastic bag. So this is also not safe for environment in the long term. But again, this option is need to be pre-positioned before the disaster. So it is good in your organization or in your national societies that you can pre-position this option, and during the emergency response you can distribute this to the community as the immediate option, which is on the second up to the third day of the disasters. And then the second options during the emergency response, this is the shallow trench latrine. Shallow trench latrine. So the depth of the trench is around 15 centimeters more or less. And then you can put the cover to maintain safety and dignity of the users. And then you can provide as well the shovel or any other tools So the users can bury the feces after using the trench latrine. This is the shallow trench latrines. Also, as mentioned, this is up to maximum 2 months after the disaster. But again, as soon as you have resources, you can improve it into more better options. The next option, improvement as the shallow trench latrines, is the deep trench latrine. These deep trench latrines is the difference between the shallow trench latrine. In the shallow trench latrines, the users have to bury the feces after defecating to reduce the risk of contaminations. In these shallow trench latrines, the users no need to do that because the depth of the latrines is maximum around 2 meters deep. So you can use the option of the deep trench latrines. Is more better solution rather than the shallow one. So this deep trench latrines, there are already slab available there. Using slab. In the shallow trench latrines, there is no slab used. In these deep trench latrines, you can use the slab from wood, or you can pre-position the plastic slab, or you can use the concrete slab as well. So the size of the trench usually about 80 centimeters in width, and also about maximum 2 meters in depth. So the length is optional. Usually you can use one trench for 5 or 6 cubicles of latrine. So it depends on the availability of the land and also the number of the community that you need to cover. So this is the difference between the pit latrine and the VIP, the ventilated improved pit latrine. The pit latrine, the one that make it different is there is a ventilation in the VIP latrine. So these ventilations have very good usage in reducing the odor and also reducing the factor like flies or other insects in the latrines. So it is more comfortable using the ventilated improved pit latrine rather than the pit latrine itself. The other option is pore flush latrine. So the pros and cons for the pore flush latrine also available there, which is the pore flush latrine is less smelly rather than the pit latrine. So the pore flush latrine usually it has the what you call it the kiss net in Indonesia we call it. So this is the water barrier that this water barrier can reduce the smell from the pit itself. So it can block the smell from the pit and also can block the factors like cockroach or flies that entering the pit. So it's more comfortable than pit latrine or VIP latrine, but of course you need to provide water to flush the feces into the pit. There are two options or two technical options on the pore flush latrine. The first option is the pit is directly under the superstructure. Yes. And the second option is the pit is in the other side of the superstructures, yeah, beside the superstructures. Of course, the one that beside the superstructures, we need to have like wide amount of the land to be construct this type of latrine, and also the different is that will make us easier in the dislodging of the pit, because if the pit is under the superstructure, we need to remove the slab, or we need to remove the superstructure in order to dislodge the faeces. This is another technical options, especially for the high water table area, perhaps near the coast or near the lake, near the swamp area, that usually you cannot pick the soil. And also, for example, if the soil is rocky and or the soil is have a permafrost, so it's very difficult to dig. So this is one of the option, example of the option, using the used oil drum as the septic tank. So this is also one type of the pore flush latrine in a high-raised latrine. So you can use this option again in most area that have high water table or the soil is very difficult to dig. You can use this option. We need to ensure everybody, the users of the toilets, have maintained their safety and privacy. The most important is about the superstructures on this part. So the superstructure need to be have fully covered, need to be have lockable door, proper lighting, especially when we need to use it in the evening. Location, the accessibility to the locations, not too far from the dwellings and easily see, so it also maintain the security of the users. Distance to the toilet, maximum from the dwellings is 50 meters. Again, I repeat, according to the spirit minimum standard, 50 meters is the maximum distance from the dwelling, from the shelter, or from the shelter, or from the tent, or from the habitat. And then the screening, this is to reduce or to prevent the flies, also the other factors. And also we need to consider about the design, especially the spirit facilities for men and women, also special design perhaps for disability, and also for children, for elderly, and so on. This is an example that we need to consider again. Latrine is a lot of things need to be considered. So latrine seems simple, but in the other hand, it is very complex as well. We need to address different needs of different users. So different users, we need to provide the latrine that can be used for all. Disability, gender, any age, any religion, mother in the in pregnancy period, and also we have to think about how we maintain of the facilities as well. So in the picture you can see some of the example that what we did here in Indonesia. Indonesia, we usually, most people commonly use the pore flush latrine with this kind of a ceramic toilet bowl. In the blue one, you can see is the common toilet that you can find in the market in Indonesia, for example. But as you can see, the size of the hole here is quite large. So some of the organizations consider that this is not too children friendly, because children are very high risk in to slip, and their feet can drop into this hole. So some organization, they are promoting and creating the design. This is the same size toilet, but it is designed especially for children-friendly latrine. So you can see the footstep is wider and larger, and also the distance between the footstep is smaller. So the children have no difficulties when they are squatting and defecating in this toilet. Before, it is very difficult for children in defecating in this toilet because the gap or the distance between the footings or between the footstep is quite wide. And then also there are some adapters as well to accommodate those that cannot squat. For example, for elderly or for a disabled person, there are some toilet adapters that can create the squat toilet, the normal squat toilet that we usually use, into the sitting toilet. In this sample, the distance between the floor and the sitting toilet is not that high. This to avoid the splashing. So in other solution, when needs a higher chair, for example, so it needs to be considered the technical option to reduce the splashing, because it uses water and also it uses the pore flush latrine for this toilet. So this is the sample of the layout of the public latrine or communal latrine. So you can see there are separate latrines for male and female, and also the washing area. For example, for female to wash their sanitary pad. And also we need to provide, again, we need to consider about this menstrual hygiene as well in constructing the latrine, showering and washing facilities. So in this layout, you can see the complete set of facilities from latrine, and then the washing area you can use for laundering area as well. So the area should be easily accessed and easily maintained, but this is also need to be considered because, again, we need to find a proper amount of land to construct these facilities. So the community discussion, community consultation is very important before we construct any latrine. So the question is, how about the physical access to facilities? So I give you an example on this high-rise latrine on the pictures. It is very high, and it used the footsteps on the stairs to access the toilet. So are there any difficulties for the elderly to access this latrine? Or, for example, this latrine is for, our intervention is for household level. Do they need further support to construct the latrine because they cannot construct by their own. So this is the thing that we need to consider about the access for the elderly. And then again on the disability. For our design, of course, for example, in the early stage of emergency, perhaps you think, oh, it is very difficult to accommodate all. But at least we need to consider that we need to make a simple design that can accessible to all, especially on the disabled person. So you can see some of the designs need to consider about the size. So the person with wheelchair can easily access the facilities. With handlebars, this is very fancy one. It uses the iron handbars. Perhaps in emergency situation, you can use like the wood handbars or using bamboos or any available materials. And then the other one is about the adapting the squat toilet into the sitting toilet. Again, in the picture, it used like a chair with a hole. But again, we need to consider and how to prevent, to reduce the splashing from this height if we use these options. And then the anal cleansing and the hand washing facilities. We have to ensure that the soap or other option is available. Also, the water for hand washing or for anal cleansing if the local habit using water for anal cleansing. Okay, anal cleansing material we need to prepare as per local habit. So that's why the community consultation, I emphasize again, community consultation and also the considering the local habit and local culture is very important in sanitation intervention. This is a little bit addition on universal design. So again, in emergency situation, it is very difficult for us to be 100% designing the latrine or the sanitation facilities with universal design. But at least we can as close as possible to design latrine that can be used, can be accessed for every community, every affected community, every people in the affected populations. So usually we just construct a latrine and then without considering, for example, a disabled person. And then when we ask why you're not putting the ramp, for example, and then the answer is that, oh, no one has a disability in this population. Yes, no one currently has disability, but we don't know. We never know. Tomorrow, we never know the day after tomorrow. So we need to design the latrine that as close as possible can be accessed for all affected population. So this is the, when we talk about universal design, there are 7 principles of the universal designs here. So the universal designs must be, can be used for everyone, and also some of the specific detail can be used for everyone, regardless the ability, regardless the gender, regardless the age, and so on. So you can see the 7 principles of universal design there. The first one is equitable use, which means that it can provide the same means of use for all users with diverse abilities. So even though it is elderly, even though this is children, it can use the facilities. The second one is the flexibility in use. Again, the facilities can accommodate wide range of preference and abilities. The facilities have to be simple and intuitive. Yes. Whatever the community level of education, level of knowledge, language, skills, and so on can use the facilities. And then the perceptible informations. Yes. So the community can use. So when we talk about disability, again, I will back to about disability. We just think about perhaps most of the time we think about the people with limited mobility, but not all. We can the disabled can also wide range. It can have difficulties in sensory perhaps, and also in limited in concentration, in like body body management, something like that. So this is a lot of wide range need to be accommodated, whatever its ability. And then the tolerance of error. We need to minimize hazard and adverse consequence of unintended actions. For example, when we we construct porous latrine, and then someone throw the rubbish or someone throw the waste, the solid waste into the toilet. So the toilet at least need to retain need to retain this ability to be used for several flushing before it's clogged. So this is the one that needs the tolerance of error. So, and then the last one is the next one is low physical effort. So the physical to access and also to use the facilities is low, so everybody can use it, whatever the ability and age. And also the size and space for approach and use. So everybody can use. There is minimum size and also the area, so everybody with like mobility support also can access the facilities. In the picture, you can see some of the example in this, some of the detail in the universal design. For example, the option of using the tap, and also the option of using the door handle, which is the one that the round one is more difficult to turn, and the other one is easier to turn. And then the lock, the simple wooden lock latch, something like that, is easier and more intuitive rather than the more fancy turn lock. So this is some of the example. Of course, a lot of things need to be considered when we talk about this universal design, but at least this is some of the detail when we consider to construct latrine with a more universal design approach. Hygiene and cleaning. We need to design the latrine that easy to clean to maintain the hygiene, and also we need to in the beginning we need to discuss with the community about the role and responsibility of the community, especially in operation and maintenance of the facilities. Who is the one that will responsible to clean the facilities? Who is the one that will clean the women's toilet, for example? Who is the one that will clean the men's toilet, for example? And we need also to provide resources for the cleaning. For example, the broom and also the cleaning materials and so on. So we need to ensure that the clean toilet will become the healthy toilet, and the community will use the toilet, and the toilet will be easy to operate and maintain in the period of time on what we have designed. So hand washing facilities is a must. Again, when we construct about the latrine, we have to construct or we have to provide hand washing facilities or other options, because hand washing facilities, one of the critical time in hand washing facilities is after using the toilet. So when we give the message to the community that, okay, this is the critical times of hand washing with soap, and then one of them is after using the toilet. And so that's why when we construct the toilet, we have to provide the hand washing materials and hand washing facilities there. So easier said than done, of course, especially in large area. That providing safe water to the community is easier than providing sanitation, someone said. Not always, but yes. And also, it is easier than to say that, okay, we will provide 50 hand washing facilities, but it will be difficult to be done. We need to work with the team and also in consultation with community to provide the low-cost, appropriate technology for hand washing. The one example is the TP tap, with a jug of TP tap, or with the bucket, or with the water scoop, for example. So it is depend on the available material, also the appropriate technology on the area. So we need to work again with the community and the team, and then to maintain these facilities to ensure that the water and the soap is always available. So we don't want to go to the community and the community complain that they cannot wash hands because the water is not available after they using the toilet. Children faeces also very important. Usually children faeces is a bit neglected, but children faeces need to be disposed properly as well. If the children cannot use the toilet, so we need to discuss the community, we need to disseminate the community how the safe and proper way to dispose the children faeces. Yeah. So the children can often harbor more harmful pathogens than adults. So that's why they also must be treated as adult feces, and also must be disposed safely. Yes, as a wrap up of today's presentations, there are some points that we need to emphasize here. Excreta disposal solutions firstly found by the people themselves. So the starting points is from the affected community itself. So sadly, during any simulation or training with the community, we do the earthquake simulation, earthquake drill, like forest fire drill, and during that simulations, it is very rare to train the community how to use the emergency toilet, emergency latrine, because of course it will be very difficult for the community that in their normal daily life they are using very fancy pour flush latrine, and then suddenly in the matter of minutes or hours they need to use the very simple pit latrine, for example. So we need to consider as well before the disaster happen how we train the community using the emergency latrine as well. A lot of different options, again, lots of different options which can be applied, and then we can adapt, we can invent it to suit different situations. So in different area, different countries, one solution is not always the best option for in different area. So this is start from you. At least we have the minimum basic principles from the for this one, and also the minimum standard to construct a thing from the sphere minimum standard, and then you can apply, adapt, or invent based on the local situation and conditions. And then facilities and resources are upgrade progressively. So this is as soon as possible, we need to upgrade to the better and better solutions. So rather than allowing poor condition to continue and then just we need to wait until the more sustainable and ideal solution to be found, we need to find the solution of how we improve this condition with our resources. Our available resources, rather than we need like a fancy porous latrine that we need to import from out of the country. So rather than we wait for several weeks or months for that fancy thing to arrive and to be installed, we need to find local materials, we need to find local solution, and we go for that. And then facilities and resources are only useful if they are used effectively by the people. Again, like that's why from the beginning, community consultation is very important, because when we make or when we construct a toilet without consultation and the community not willing to use it because it's not it's not properly constructed or it's not suitable with their habit or their culture, so this facilities is not effective to solve the problem, and the risk is there. So they are very useful if they are used. So we have to ensure that the community use it, and also we have to ensure that these facilities is well maintained. Okay, so the staff that focus on the software and hardware must work together. So this is usually, I'm doing the hardware part, I'm doing sanitation part, I don't care on software part. No, this is, you cannot spare this software activities and hardware activities and hardware activities and software activities. Everybody have to work together, and they are complementing each other. So both software part is community engagement, and then hygiene promotion, and also the hardware part, construction of the facilities must work together to ensure that these facilities is within the consultation of the community, well constructed, and also can be used effectively by the affected populations. I think that's all. I think. Back to you.
Thanks a lot, Agung. It was very interesting, and I hope you enjoy as much I did.